All right, guys, welcome back to Conspirinormal. And tonight we've got a guest that we haven't had on in a while, and just kind of wanted to rectify that. And that is Steve Stockton, who, God, has been on the show several times, but I think it's been since at least 2021 that we've had him on talking about one of his books. But tonight we're going to talk about some of the material from his YouTube channel and also just whatever, subjects we get into. But Steve, welcome back to Conspirinormal, man.
Oh, it's good to be back. I didn't realize it had been that long. And I think one of the last times I remember on, I was still living in Portland, Oregon, and it was during that Phantom Clown flap. I know I came on, we talked about that.
Yep, yes we did.
That's been a while. And there was one where it's in a park or something, ran out of the woods and chased some kids, and the police went and checked it out, and they found like an abandoned, dilapidated shack, and inside there was clown paraphernalia, and they never elaborated. And we were pontificating, what was it, a rubber nose and some big floppy shoes? Or...
What happened to the clown flaps? Are they over?
It just went away. Like, it was never really reported on anymore, or if it was happening, and
about time for him to come back, I think.
Unsolved.
Yeah, I think so.
Election year, that'd be a good time for Phantom Clowns.
I think so. I think really what happened was some people started to like copy it in real life, and so you had a whole bunch of people that you had this weird copycat effect, like Lauren Coleman, I guess, would say.
Yeah.
And people would started doing it and like fessed up to it. So I guess a lot of people just said, well, it must have been these guys or like a whole network of guys. But there was some genuinely like weird stuff. I mean, that was just a weird thing. Like the case you were talking about, Steve, was I think in South Carolina, I think behind like this apartment complex, and like this phantom clown appeared, behind the apartment complex, and and chased the kids through the woods or something. And they called the cops, and the cops went out there, and they found this shack that had the clown paraphernalia.
I still want to know what I want to read the police report on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time I ever heard about it was Lauren Coleman wrote about it back in 1981, Brookline, Massachusetts, not too far from where I'm at. It's a suburb of Boston. That was I think kids were in a schoolyard or something, and they said it was 4 clowns in a purple van or something like that tried to lure them into the van.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly spread everywhere. It was in the Midwest, and then happened again in Phoenix in I think it's the mid 80s, and then West Orange, New Jersey in the early 90s, and then it was even in Brazil and places like that, 95 in the Honduras. And this was, prior to Stephen King's It and all that, so...
But not after it seemed to happen kind of after John Wayne Gacy is the one thing that I noticed.
And something interesting that Lauren pointed out was that the origins of the clown makeup that started in the children's miracle plays during the Crusades. Was represented the devil. He had the face painted up and the striped pants and stuff. So there you go. It's the devil. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it because I got to go on your show a couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of how that we were talking about how there's like a very trickster element to this. It's like the universal trickster that's just out there.
And I don't think about that. There's like, you had the men in black. Like, well, let's send the guys in suits and nice cars, but the cars are, even though brand new, they're 20 years out of date. The clothing styles are off, and they talk funny. Well, that didn't work. Let's send Phantom Clowns. Let's send clowns. Everybody loves clowns, but these are creepy clowns that come out of the woods in the dark and chase people. That didn't work. Let's send kids out there. Everybody likes kids, but these are black-eyed kids that try to get in your house and stuff. I don't know. I said one time, this was years ago before I was married, I said if they ever send black-eyed bikini models with pizza and metal albums, you'll know what happened to me.
Hell yeah. Must be fun to be an Archon.
Yeah, they just can't quite get it right from whatever they're attempting, I
Or
suppose.
they don't care. They'd like to leave it off just a little bit to keep you guessing.
Yeah, well, Steve, I understand that you've had some changes, a lot of changes since we last talked to each other on this show.
Yeah, I've moved a couple times. I went from Portland. Well, from Portland, I went to St. Helens, Oregon, little town. If you've ever seen those Disney Halloween Town movies, that is Halloween Town. That's where it was filmed. And
No.
for the whole month of October, St. Helens, Oregon becomes Halloween Town. And Marnie, I don't know if that's the actress or the character's name from the film. She's the marshal of their Halloween parade and all this, the grand marshal. And they do more for Halloween there than they do Christmas. And that was fun. And then I went to the high desert in New Mexico for a while, lived there for about a year. It's in Farmington, it's got one of the most amazing UFO cases you've probably never heard of. In it was 1950. There was I think it was 20 or 24 silver discs and one red one that flew up and down the Animas River for 2 days, seen by cops and shopkeepers and all kinds of people. You never hear about that when it only recently surfaced and was buried in some FOIA stuff. But that whole place out there, I was close to the Four Corners. I was right on the edge of the Navajo reservation, and there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff out there, skinwalkers and the UFO crashes and stuff. And if you think about that, the desert, it's like a big cat box, it's all sand and stuff. And if you're going to ditch a plane or a interstellar craft, I guess that'd be a good place to look soft from the air. But they have those, like if you've ever traveled over into Cherokee, North Carolina,
Hmm.
or back with those big, big hills they have over there. They have those runaway truck lanes, and that's what it is. It's a
Yeah.
cutoff, and then it ends in a sand pit.
Yeah. That's a cool way to think about it.
And there you go. If you're going to have to ditch your crap, there you go. There's the desert, aim for the sand. But I've heard a story. It's an urban legend, I think. But a guy was out, 18-wheeler, lost his brakes, and he was, knew there was one of those coming up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got it. I can get in there." So he takes off off the interstate up this because they're real steep, and then it ends in a sand pit. And just as he gets off the interstate and hits this little exit thing for the truck ditch, he sees a family with a blanket spread out having a picnic in the sand area.
Oh God.
Again, I think that's just an urban legend, but I've heard of stranger things that actually happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, so you're in Massachusetts now,
Yeah.
on the other side of the country.
Yep. Loving it here in New England. It's all the New England states have a lot of creepy, weird things going on here. And I'm writing a book about the area. And it was just going to be, like unsolved mysteries and things and haunted stuff in New England. But doing research, found out that Connecticut has got more weird stuff than anywhere. So I think Connecticut may be worthy of its own book. And then I'll write about the rest of the other five New England states in another volume or maybe a series, like I did with the Unsolved Mysteries and Disappearances here, the National Park series that I did. National Park Mysteries and Disappearances. I got 3 volumes of that. Need to pick that back up. Those do real well. They've all been bestsellers, hit number 1 in several different categories on Amazon.
What's your why do you think Connecticut has so much? Is it just kind of
I
like
don't know. It's
the
just
age and the population density?
yeah. There's so much history here, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of battles. Prior to the Revolutionary War, a lot of battles between the early settlers and the Native Americans. And I think there was stuff here even before what's considered the indigenous people. I think there was creepy stuff here because there's places that a lot of the New England tribes here will stay away from and don't want to go. And they had stories of stuff that was here before them. But it's like, Stephen King writes about the ground is soured. I think there's so much bloodshed and stuff happened here. And some of those ancient cultures, no telling what kind of dark magic and things they were into. They may have conjured up some stuff, but you can build a brand new house, but if there's been something on that ground before, then you're going to get all kinds of manifestations.
It's Lovecraft country out there.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting thing about that, we got married in Providence, Rhode Island, at Lovecraft's grave. And that's in the
Okay.
Swan
Yeah.
Point Cemetery. Now, that's also where Edgar Allan Poe proposed to Elizabeth. But it's a beautiful cemetery right there on the water. And tried to go about it through the normal channels. But the people at Swan Point, like, no, you can't get married here. Like, we've got a chapel that you can rent, but that's for memorial services. They thought I was a cuckoo bird. My wife's dark-minded like I am. So we finally found, I think it was a Unitarian Universalist pastor that would do it, but he's like, you can't tell anybody about this. So
Right.
we sworn to secrecy. But we went like we were paying our respects to Lovecraft and then said our wedding vows real quick, like a three
Okay.
minute ceremony. But hey, it worked. So, but yeah, we're both
What you,
big Lovecraft fans. But it's just like, I mean, he loved Providence, but there's a lot of creepy places up here like that.
I was just up there. I was telling you on the other show, I was telling you about that. I was just up there last year for Paramania, and we went over to like Portland, Maine, and saw the Bigfoot Museum up there. Met up with Lauren Coleman and America's Stonehenge up in New Hampshire, which is an
Yeah.
interesting place.
And there's
And
there's
so,
several of those. There's one of those
yeah,
stone circles here in New England. I'll write a
yeah,
blog post about it, but it's lousy with them up here. They're all over the
yeah,
place. There's one
yeah. It's like
Paul Harvey talked about back in the 60s,
what you
70s.
thought what's your thoughts about like, going about Salem? It's very much kind of like this like kind of weird paranormal Disneyland.
Yeah, I've got to go, but people I know that live there said don't come during Halloween. They said, it's just
Yeah,
overblown and everything. They
right.
jack up the prices, and they said, come if you're going to come in October, come in early October. But yeah, I've got to do Salem. We've got plans to do that soon.
Yeah, that's an interesting place. I wish I'd had a little bit more time there just because there's a lot more historical stuff that's just kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got the cemetery, where the witch trial victims are buried and a little like memorial to them up there. And that's, it's very much like it's goth girl like Disneyland up there.
yeah,
It's
I
crazy.
love it.
And everybody's like the Hocus Pocus was filmed there, so that's another part of it. And
Yeah,
they had you got these weird, of course you got these statues. You got like, Nathaniel Hawthorne though is like another part of it because that's where Hawthorne was from. And so you got the House of the Green Gables is there.
yeah,
The House of the Seven Gables is there.
yeah,
Um which the house that he based the story off of. So there's
yeah.
all this like Hawthorne
All
stuff,
kinds
and
of
you got
stuff. And then you have
statues of Puritans, and then a
yeah,
statue of Samantha from
and
Bewitched.
then you've got Plymouth Rock, and that's kind of I don't know. It was kind of anticlimactic too. It's just literally just a rock, but it's what
You
it
weren't
represents.
impressed?
Yeah, I was expecting something much bigger.
Yeah.
But it's still cool. And the one that I want to check out that I haven't got to yet is the grave of Mercy Brown, and that's in
Uh-huh.
Exeter, Rhode Island. That's kind of kicked off
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
one of the many New England vampire panics. But that was back in 1892. Where they exhumed the corpse in order to perform a ritual to banish undead manifestations. So I got to
Hmm.
go check that out. But that was the one, where they thought she was responsible. I think it was some of her family members said that she was coming to them in the night, and they dug her up, and sure enough, she hadn't begun to decompose, and she'd been in the ground for several months, I think, and still had I think fresh blood in her heart, maybe in her mouth or something like that. And of course, her hair and nails
Yeah.
had grown. And they cut her heart out and burned it, and then mixed the ashes, I think, with water or something, and made her little brother drink that, but he ended up dying anyway. But the rest of the family got better. So who's to say? But yeah, it's that kind of thing. Again, that's Lovecraft country up there, but creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Exeter, New Hampshire, which was a UFO. There's a UFO encounter there in like I think in the 50s. And we saw where um the hills were buried, Betty and Barney
Yeah, Betty
Hill.
and Barney Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made some videos about that before. That's in I think that's in New Hampshire, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The encounter took place in like kind of upstate New Hampshire, closer to Canada. But they were from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is right there, and then but they're buried kind of like in
yeah.
between Exeter and Portsmouth.
Talked about that case over on. I've got a UFO and related phenomenon channel too called From Beyond. Just kind of low key right now. We go live once a week. It's me and Lee G from First Floor Audio, and we go around and we watched a video I made about the Betty and Barney Hill case, and we've covered Phil Schneider and some of the stuff. He was the guy that got in the laser gun fight with the aliens and whatever and got
Yeah,
his fingers cut
yeah,
off. It's
yeah.
compelling watching
The
anyway. I mean,
Dulce base.
yeah.
Yep.
And I wasn't too far from there when I lived in New Mexico. And then last week we watched a VHS rip of Bob Lazar video from I think '91 or something. Him talking about S4 and anti-gravity and all this stuff. Again, it's a lot of people have smeared him and discredited him and stuff. But if even a smidgen of what he's saying is true, then yeah, he knows some stuff.
So you've got a few YouTube channels that you're doing. Let's talk a little bit about that, how you've gotten these YouTube channels started and the different ones that you have.
Yeah, I started with 13 past midnight. And that was just, I wanted to do something on YouTube. And I was kind of into the horror narration community at the time. And I thought, well, what am I going to narrate? And I thought, well, dummy, you've got several books here that you've written. Narrate your own books. So I started over there doing stories out of my first couple of books, Strange Things in the Woods and My Strange World, which is autobiographical. It's some of my experiences. I've had enough to at least fill another volume and did that. And then a guy got a hold of me, and he was doing a missing person channel, missing persons and mysteries. And I went over there and did that for 2 or 3 years. And then we kind of had a parting of the ways. And then he had some health issues and things like that, and just got tired of fooling with it. So I'm back with missing persons and mysteries now, and it's my channel. And almost just a hair under 289,000 subs over there. So that's doing real well. But in the interim, when I wasn't doing missing persons and mysteries, I started Among the Missing, just as my own channel. And I've got it up, I think it's around 106,000. And then I've got From Beyond, which I talked about. And again, it's kind of a slow grind on that one over there. It's only about 3,500 subs. And then got a Insomniac Radio Theater. That's my wife's channel that she produces it, and thinking that's I've got some fiction reading over there. My great great uncle Frank Stockton, around the turn of the last century, he was contemporary of Mark Twain, and excuse me, wrote a lot of popular fiction and even kids stories and stuff. It's all in the public domain now, so I read some of his stuff and had a lot of fun with that. And also do like some dark screen music over there, like the chill out, like lo-fi type stuff.
Okay. Sounds like you got like a little empire going on here,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, building my media empire over there. So,
Hell yeah.
but it's just the two of us, just my wife and I. So we're spread kind of thin, but just
Yeah.
catch as catch can. Work on this, work on that. She likes to write and edit, and I'm the voice, and I do the video editing and audio editing and things like that. So,
Sound like
Yeah.
a
we'll
great
read some
team.
books too.
How often are you getting videos out between these channels? Like
It
it's a
just
pretty
it just varies. I've kind of let ATM go since I went back to missing persons and mysteries at the end of January and
yeah.
acquired that channel. But there for a while, see, I had a whole back catalog of stuff that when I parted ways over there, I took all my stuff with me, took my toys and went home. So I've got about 300 videos that I'm in the process of putting back up over there and recording some new material too. But there for a while, I was putting out one or two a day. I haven't put anything out in April yet, but I've got about 30 ready to go for this month. So,
Oh, okay.
and
Well,
then
we're only on the second day of April, Steve. You
yeah,
better
so I
get
gotta
cracking.
step up. Yeah, I took some time off. I mean, I'm still technically a newlywed. I'm still on my honeymoon, so got married in
Yeah.
July. But somebody said, "How long do you get to
Congratulations.
be a?" Oh, thank you. Somebody said, "How long do you get to be a newlywed?" I don't know, as long as I want to, I guess. Um, But I'm going to switch gears on ATM. I'm going to turn that into something different. And that's all in the works. I don't want to say too much yet, but it's going to be narration type stuff, but different type. I kind of pigeonholed it with Among the Missing, and I enjoy doing those missing persons thing. Just if nothing else, to keep the names and faces out there, because some of these people, have been missing for decades and more. I've
Oh
covered
yeah,
cases, from over 100 years ago. But
for sure.
that's like a calling that's been laid on me to keep those names and faces out there. And that started with Dennis Martin, which you and I talked about. That was
Yeah.
I was living in Knoxville at the time. I was just little. I was 5 going on 6, and he was 6 going on 7. We were just a few months apart.
Wow.
That happened Father's Day, 1969. I remember it well, and that just kind of, you know, wow, a kid about my age can go missing and never be found, and that one just always stuck with me.
Is there any of these cases that since you've been doing this for a little bit, are there any of these cases that have been solved? Have they found any of these people? I mean, what's,
Yeah, that happens sometimes. There's a YouTube channel, Adventures with Purpose, and they pull some vehicles out of the water that still had the missing person in them. Now, again, don't know the circumstances necessarily of how they got there,
yeah,
but there's been a few found that way. So there are people that are found. It's usually death by misadventure, or as far as the national park stuff, a lot of it is people that are either overconfident or ill prepared or both.
right.
Not all of them are that spooky necessarily, but there are some that just there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, like the sudden disappearance where there was a group and they walk ahead, go around a curve or bend in the trail, and then they're never seen again, or the footprints stop, or they find their boots and or their clothing or something, and then that's it. And there's no trace. So there is some unexplainable stuff out there.
Yeah, kind of like the Trinity Gibson case, which we've talked about a lot, where she
Yeah.
just disappeared.
Yeah, I didn't really know her, but I seen her. She's from Knoxville too.
Yeah.
She worked at Morrison's cafeteria in Westtown Mall. It's kind of it was an old folks place. My parents, they were late. I was a late in life, unexpected baby. My parents were, my dad was born 1921, my mom 1927. I was born 1960. But we would go there and eat sometimes. She was one of the girls that would carry her tray to the table. We went to rival high schools. I went to Carnes and she went to Bearden. So I knew
Uh,
of her, but I didn't really know her. Now I did get to talk to her sister before she passed away. She uh, alcoholism got her, and a lot of that was due to everything that happened with Trini. It basically just split that family apart. A lot of
oh, I bet.
blaming and finger pointing and stuff. But um, she said that in her, part of her hopes that Trini's somewhere in Southern California, that she ran away with a boy that her parents would have approved of, and she changed her name and living her life on the beach somewhere. But she said, in my heart of hearts, Steve, I don't think she left that mountain alive. So there you go.
Yeah, Steve, we've had a spate of missing persons. Well, they found one here in Nashville in like the last couple of months.
I think I know
One,
the one you're talking about. I haven't
yeah,
covered that one
there's
yet.
so
Sometimes we kind of wait for it to shake out, especially when they have been found, so we don't
yeah,
report any wrong information. Was that the one they found in the water?
yeah, it was a college student from University of Missouri that now they're speculating that he probably, tried to go pee in the river and fell in. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best speculation.
That happens, especially if you've been drinking. I
Yeah,
remember back in the 80s one time you could get California coolers in a 2-liter bottle. I don't think they do that anymore. And my friends and I were out to the lake there in Oak Ridge, Mountain Hill Lake, and we'd had 2 or 3 of those passing them around. And I went to pee in the lake and suddenly realized I'm standing in the water up to my knees, and I'd slipped off the bank and didn't even know it.
yeah.
Don't drink anymore. But something like that could happen. If it'd been a raging river, off I would have went, and nobody might have ever seen me again.
It was a tragedy, but I think
Yeah.
I mean, some people are trying to,
Well, it
say
sounds
that
like
it's
a
like
smiley face killer. If
right.
you're,
Yeah, I was trying to say
yeah, I
it's like
know
a
we
smiley
talked about
face
that a little
killer
bit on
type
our
of thing,
radio show, but a lot of
but I
college,
think it's
if
pretty
you have
obvious.
a college campus and body of water, I don't know, it kind of fits that MO, if that's what you want
Yeah.
to call it.
But I mean, there's a lot of colleges here. He didn't go to college here in Nashville, but this was just, Nashville is a party city,
Yeah,
Yeah.
people do like
and
to get drunk.
yeah, that it doesn't happen more is probably a good testament that,
Yeah.
they keep people fairly safe.
But I know
Um,
we touched on some of those on my radio show the other Brian Schaefer, that case. I think that's probably a smiley face. Or
well, this is, I mean, this is a good subject to get into. Then how do
Yeah.
you think, what would make it more? Because I think the smiley face thing is kind of statistical, but I'm open to maybe there being something. But what do you think about? Is there like a way to tell that could be more nefarious than just somebody just like,
well,
trying to
the only
urinate in
thing
the
that
river and
doesn't
falling in?
point, yeah, the only thing that doesn't point to the smiley face and that they didn't find him in the water. They didn't find him, period. But kind of the same thing,
Right.
college student in a bar, CCTV footage of him going in, none of him coming out, and then he's never seen again.
Yeah.
But I told you one of the rumors that I'd heard that he went out back and urinated on the band that was playing there. He peed on some of their equipment or something, and they might have stuffed him in a road case and took him out of there. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, the other one and this one was even more bizarre. Was the Sebastian Rogers, a 15-year-old boy that disappeared out of a neighborhood, and it's just incidentally a neighborhood where a friend of mine lives. And so I've had like some inside track on it just a little bit from like just the process of the cops. And like the cops interviewed all the neighbors, they interview everybody in the neighborhood. And this has been going on now for over a month. Um, and there was a update today on the station, the local news station it's Sumner County, which is where Hendersonville is, Steve.
Yeah,
And they were saying that, we're keeping everything open, we're still looking, and then they just kind of warned about the sensationalism of the internet
yeah. The
and
police were
YouTube
saying that
getting
there's
out
a
of
lot of
control.
inaccurate information that's caused distractions. And again, some
Yeah,
of these, especially high-profile cases, I'll hold back a little bit till I kind of see what happens. Like Julian Sands, I waited. People kept saying, "When are you going to cover this? When are you going to cover this? When are you going to
right,
cover this?" And
right.
then I covered it, and then right after that, they found his remains. So that's why
Yeah.
I like to wait a little bit because then I have to do an update or take that video down and then do a different one.
Yeah, well, the thing is like unless the police are holding, which they could be holding some information back, which is a good wise thing for them to do, but it just seemed like he just disappeared without a trace. And there has been like there's been suspicions and accusations and all kinds of things flying around. So this is just one of those things that's just it's a case that's like still ongoing up here in Nashville.
Yeah, the kid was autistic, and
Yeah,
there was I don't know his mom got some threats and stuff. I don't know if that was prior or not. Again, I don't want to spread any misinformation, but there's not a lot of solid information out there. There's a lot of, and that's what happens when they do hold back. And I understand why they do that way.
right, right.
They've got the cops have their ace in the hole, and then that way, if they catch somebody, they've got information that only responsible parties should know. But that makes it rampant for speculation and a lot
Yeah.
of weird theories and stuff. And yeah, that's one of those. I'd heard something about maybe they found his glasses, but I haven't heard anything conclusive on that.
Yeah, I think that maybe so, but I mean, it's still
But
looking,
he
and
was he
it
was
doesn't look very good.
barefoot and had a flashlight.
Yeah.
That's not going to work out well, especially barefoot.
Do you cover any of the cases that you've covered? Have you covered? I know you cover people that venture into the woods, which we'll talk about that, but do you cover anything like that where just somebody like literally leaves their house and is never seen again?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of cases like that. Now, sometimes it's a runaway, especially with younger people,
Mhm.
Sure.
and they do come back. But then there's people that just disappear, literally go out for a pack of cigarettes or something, and then you never see them again. Now, the obvious choice that would be, somebody just decided to pull a runner and start a new life, but that's not as easy as it was, decades ago. I,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then a lot of those people are found years. There was one lady that did that. Just she's like cooking dinner or something, and just walked out the door, left her kids there, dinner on the stove and everything, and then they found her like 19 years later, something like that. She had another family and had like 7 kids or something. Just wanted a different situation, and that happens. And then you hear about people that disappear on purpose. I mean, there's no law against vanishing, but it's it can cause a lot of problems and lead to a lot of misspent man hours that could be better spent doing something else. So, especially cases where they don't let anybody know, or you have people that fake it to cover up something else. Like remember the Sherry Papini case from a few years ago, where she
Yep.
was supposedly jogging near home, and then they found her, I think it's Thanksgiving Day or something like that, on the side of the road. She'd been branded and had her hair chopped off, and she claimed it was two Hispanic women that had
Hmm.
um, abducted her and hell was going to hold her for ransom. And then it turned out she was cheating on her husband with somebody and had spent the time with him. So kind of a big brouhaha over that. And that kind of stuff happens too. I think they charged her with making false statements or something like that.
Yeah, there was this whole like documentary that this series that where they're talking about this woman that actually was abducted, and the police did not believe her because the story was so outlandish, and the abductor actually made everything so outlandish that he uh so that it would be unbelievable. Like
Well, that kind
he
of
purposely did that.
that kind of harkens back to the satanic panic, and
Yeah. Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
McMartin preschool said, that they took them through a tunnel to a different building, and Mickey Mouse and Chuck Norris was there, things like that. So it makes you wonder if they did do stuff like that just so the kids would tell these wild stories and nobody would believe a word they said.
Yeah, what do you think about that case? Let's open a can of beans, Steve. What do you
Yeah.
think? Because like
I think there was
that
something to all that.
yeah, I have wondered about whether or not there was actual some form of abuse, not satanic ritual abuse, but some form of abuse, and the actual total sensationalism of that case just kind of ruined the whatever the truth would have, what a kernel of truth would have been actually used to convict somebody. That's kind of how I feel. It's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah. But again, I think didn't they go back with some kind of ground penetrating radar or something and find that there had been tunnels there at one time and they've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
filled in. So
right.
I think something was going on there.
Yeah,
Some of it was just so bizarre, and it did overlap with that satanic panic that was going on at the time, fueled by people like Bob Larson and some of those people.
oh, it definitely did. I mean, it's the case I think that really sparked the Satanic Panic. Like it was gurgling in the United States, but it really sparked it off. Was the
And
Big
just
Martin preschool
some of the
case?
claims, that they were taken to orgies at car washes and airports, and that they had toilets that when they flushed, it wasn't a regular toilet, but it sent them down a secret tunnel into a secret room or something. It was just so far-fetched and crazy. It was fascinating. And then they had them play games, a naked movie star and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. I think, again, I think something happened there. I don't think it's as outlandish as was later described, because
Right.
I think when people started making those allegations, some of the kids, the McMartin preschool kids, just kind of picked it up and ran with it. And, hey, Jimmy told that story and he got on TV. I'll tell a bigger story and they'll put me on, 60 Minutes or 2020 or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Kids have wild imaginations, but again, what better way to cover it up than to, have somebody dressed up like Mickey Mouse or Chuck Norris look-alike, and then the kids go tell that, and nobody's gonna believe them.
Makes you wonder. Although I don't know. I think that might be giving too much credit to to criminals, but
Yeah,
but
seriously.
yeah, but this guy actually did make it seem so outlandish. The story that this girl told about her assault, basically kept her captive for like days. And but it was so bizarre. The truth of what she said was so bizarre that the police didn't believe her, and so they accused her of having watched the movie Gone Girl, and later on he did it, and later on the guy did it to some other girl, and they were able to match that up with what this girl had said, this woman had said, and they got the guy, and he confessed, yeah, I made it seem so outlandish that no one would believe my victims.
Yeah. It was like I covered a case where a girl went missing and she'd gone out in the woods or I think it was a state forest or maybe even a national park with a much older man that he was going to take her out and show her Bigfoot. And then he
Hmm.
shows up like days later and reports her missing. And his story was Bigfoot came out of the woods and took her. Well, how are you going to refute that? He's got his perfect alibi. Bigfoot did it.
Right. Did it work?
I don't think they were. I don't think they were able to charge him with that in particular, but they got him with something else. But
Yeah,
she's
so it
never
was
been found.
obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then you do have stories of Bigfoot abductions and going back to can't remember the guy Alfred Osman, I think back in the 20s that claimed
Yeah.
he stayed with some Bigfoots that took him in his sleeping bag for a few days or weeks or whatever that was, and he ended up poisoning them with his snuff and made a break for it and got away.
Well, that's a good place to talk about feral humans in the woods. You have a video about that, and you talk about this a lot actually, and on your channels, and we've talked about some of this before. But we're not necessarily talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about actual, like, human
Yeah.
beings that like live in the woods or like
Yes.
wild humans, basically.
Yeah. And I think it can happen. And again, that's one of those things that really interests me because even Dwight McCarter, retired park ranger in the Smokies, he was the lead tracker on the Dennis Martin case. He's talked about that there are people that live in the woods, that live in the park that are just off grid, prefer to be left alone and stuff. He didn't say that they were feral, but the story is that they're feral cannibal, feral. I made up a new word there, feral cannibal people. And there are people that claim that there's some kind of Bigfoot human hybrid. There's a guy on YouTube that has a channel called South Force 10, and he's an older gentleman. I think he's well up into his 60s. And he claims that when he was growing up, he heard stories from his family about some of his relatives were hired before it became a national park to go in there and hunt these things to kind of thin the population so that they could make the national park there. And he claims that they're feral, or shit, there's that word again, can, feral cannibal people, and they're possibly human Bigfoot hybrids, and he claims that they either ate Dennis Martin or they used him for breeding purposes because I guess, inbred cannibal hillbillies, they don't have a big gene pool to choose from.
Sure.
Wow.
I mean,
There's
that
probably
makes sense.
quite the spectrum of people from just weirdo outlaws off the grid to
Yeah,
wild men of some kind to possibly into some other species, right?
yeah. And I mean, I could see it happening. There are people that live off the grid over in Fentress County, where my dad's from. When he was growing up, there were people that lived, I mean, miles back in the woods that only came into town, once every few months or so to get what they needed. Now, a lot of those guys were moonshiners and things like that. There was a reason why they wanted to be that isolated, but it does happen. And I talk about that in my book about the Smokies, uh, because I've had people say that, like, oh, there's no way you could hide, in the national park and not be found. I'm just like, you just haven't been deep enough into the woods there.
Yeah.
And case in point, Eric Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber,
Yep.
Yep.
when he was on the FBI's most wanted list, he had in Nantahala National Forest for like 5 or 6 years. And he did have some outdoor experience. I think he had been through some kind of military training. But if somebody like that can do it, then people that had several generations back in the woods like that, I think it'd be easy. I mean, you've got food, water, shelter, everything you need back there if you know what you're doing. So it stands to reason that there could be feral people.
Yeah, after a few generations, it probably gets pretty weird too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, you talk about how just how damn big the Smoky Mountains National Park is. I mean, I think it's like what, probably the third largest in size in the United States. It's definitely the
Uh,
largest in the eastern United States.
yeah, let me look here real quick and see what the acreage is. It's over 500,000 acres, I think.
Yeah,
522,427 acres. That's a lot of land.
it is. And you make
So
the point that like if you get off the trail, there's just a lot there that's just wild.
yeah, I mean, there's places that you have to bushwhack. You have to take a machete to go. Back in the day, I used to do a lot of off trail, backcountry stuff. I didn't like the touristy trails and things.
Hmm.
Didn't want to be bothered. And there's places, the hells they call them. Like there's an infamous one called Huggins Hell that it's so hard to get into and get through that a lot of park rangers won't tell you where it's at or even acknowledge its existence because I mean there's places where literally you're climbing straight up. There's water coming down. There's all kinds of just thick brush and overgrowth and things. And there's a lot of places like that there. And again, if you stay on the hiking trail or on the Appalachian Trail that comes through there, it's fairly easy, compared to just going off trail.
Hmm.
But
Right,
it'd be easy to get yourself into a spot though where you could get lost or get in trouble. I mean, you step the wrong way and twist an ankle or something, nobody even would know where to look for you.
right. Yeah, I mean it's crazy um to think about that. Oh, just how just the sheer amount of land that's out there.
Yeah.
I mean, what were some of your, I mean, going out there yourself and doing that? I mean, did you ever, I mean, I think you've had some weird experiences,
Yeah, I've
in
had a
those
lot of
areas
things.
yourself.
In particular, times when the woods would go silent.
Yeah,
That's just the most unsettling thing.
right.
And I don't mean like just a brief silence or whatever, but like literally hitting the mute button. You couldn't hear the wind in the trees. You didn't hear any birds. You couldn't hear anything anywhere. It's like you were suddenly in a vacuum, and that's always frightening. And I was up, and I talk about this in My Strange World. I was up near Clingman's Dome one time, and I'd gone off trail because that's a big tourist spot. That's the highest point in the Smokies, and you can go up there on the lookout, and on a clear day, which is relatively rare, but you can see a long way. And I'd been up near Clingman's Dome and was just coming back off trail, and I found a clearing there where there was a tree. It was like, I think it was like a beech tree or something like that. It was a weird looking tree. And it's totally out of place because there's not any kind of trees like that up at that elevation. But this thing had to be hundreds of years old and huge. It would take 7 or 8 people holding hands to go all the way around this tree. And it was like something out of a Frank Capra movie. It had been kind of cloudy that day and overcast. Clouds parted just enough. There's these beams of sunlight coming through the canopy and like lighting up this one tree in a clearing. And I walked over there into the clearing to get a better look at it. I'm just kind of marveling at it. It looked like it wasn't even real. It looked like a Disney Imagineer had made
Mhm.
a tree. And the woods had gone quiet. And I'm thinking, that tree, that's amazing. That'd be a good place, just sit down and lean up against the tree and just relax for a while. And, maybe I could even take a nap. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what? Where'd that thought even come from? It's, late
Mhm.
afternoon. I got to get down off of here or I'm going to be in the dark. And I was just doing like a day hike. Didn't really have anything for staying overnight. And that's another thing. In the Smokies, the weather can change real quick.
Right.
And that was the most unsettling thing about it. That, this strange thoughts in my head, oh, sit down, take a nap, you'll be fine. And I think if I had listened to whatever that voice was in my head, that I'd probably be among the missing up there.
That sounds like a little bit of like some, like a fairy world
Yeah, yeah.
experience
And there's
almost. Yeah.
there's a lot of legends of little people up there. The
Yep.
Cherokee talk about
Yep.
the little people, and part of those legends, it dovetails in with the UFO stuff and the Bigfoot stuff and the Glimmer Man and all that stuff, the fairy lanterns, the lights and things. I've talked to people that have encountered those in the park. So there's something up there. It's mysterious. There's a weird energy, especially in certain areas. I'd say the strangest areas in the Smokies are Kate's Cove and probably the North Shore of Fontana Lake. It feels so off up there.
Hmm. Besides, we talked a lot about Dennis Martin, Trina Gibson, and we talked about that before. But what are some of the other cases that you find interesting?
The Thelma, Holly, Pauline Melton. I think she
Yeah,
disappeared. I want to say like 1980 or 81. I was in the hiking and skiing club that I was a part of at the time. We were some of the search and rescue volunteers, but it was just basically, arm's length and walking through, and we didn't find anything, but neither did anyone else. She was walking with some friends, and they were staying at the campground up there. Can't remember the Dudley Creek, I think, campground. Her and her husband had an Airstream that they left parked there, and they'd come and stay for days or weeks at a time. And her and some of her friends from the campground, a couple other ladies, were just walking along, and she walked ahead of them and went out of sight, and then they never saw her again. They got back. Her husband hadn't seen her, and she hadn't been seen since. And she had medications and things that she was on that she needed that she didn't take with her. And that's a strange one. But then there was a lot of other stuff that came to light, like she may have been one of those that pulled a runner. She was married to a much older man, and his health was starting to fail. And she may have just thought, hey, I'm out, and had somebody pick her up and disappeared herself. But again, no trace.
yeah. So it's possible she might have gone live a whole other life. There
Yeah.
was one that you talked about in, I think it was 2004, that this young man that just kind of walked into the woods in the Smokies and was just never seen again.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I made a video about him, and I can't pull the name off the top of my head. But yeah, he'd spent the night like at a hotel. He was from, I think, Blount County or somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he's from
And
Tennessee.
they found his car at the trailhead there, and he'd left a note in there, "Don't come looking for me" or something like that. And then there was, you know, conjecture either way as to that was like he wanted to go missing, or he was saying, "Hey, I'm not lost. Just I'll be back." But either way, and then his dad, parents, when they did figure out he was missing, they went to the last place he'd stay, is like a microtel or something there in North Carolina, the edge of the park. And there's like his dad said it looked like a tableau that was set up in there. There was a bottle of liquor and an open Bible, like he was struggling with something. But again, even if you were going up there to opt out, I don't see how really you could get yourself into a place that quick where nobody could ever find any trace of you.
Yeah, you would
I
think
mean,
they
you
would
could
get
get far enough back in the woods that nobody would ever find you, and
right.
nature would take over after, 2 or 3 weeks or months, and there wouldn't be anything left. The animals would scatter your bones, but he hadn't been missing that long.
Well, that kind of reminded me of like the suicide forest in Japan,
Yeah,
the one at the foot of Mount Fuji. It kind of reminded me of that same kind of action. I mean, of course, the Japanese are well aware that this is what goes on there since it's called the suicide
Derek Luking.
forest.
Derek Luking was the guy's name.
Yeah. But they find bodies, but they find bodies there, but again, they're aware of it. But you'd think that they would, if he did commit suicide, that they would have found him, pretty
Yeah.
quickly. I would
Of course,
think.
then again, he had been missing for like 2 weeks that they think. So
Yeah.
you could go a long way in the woods in 2 weeks.
Right.
But I don't,
Right.
unless he had bought some survival gear and had some pages out of a Army survival manual. Somebody left a bunch of stuff in his car. The other weird thing about that one, the people that were in there hiking that particular trail that day, um, there's a newfound gap. Nobody recalled ever seeing him, and
Hmm.
so there's some thought that maybe he never made it into the park, that somebody nabbed him from the parking lot, or he met with foul play, excuse me, elsewhere, and they just took his car there and left. And I think that happens too, that people appear to go missing in an area when they were never there in the first place is a red herring by whoever did them in.
There's also a lot of in these parks, there's that they don't talk about too much. is some of these like unsolved murders. And there was one that you're talking about, these two women in 1996,
Yeah,
and they
Shenandoah.
actually, yeah, they let the guy go on some weird technicality or something.
Yeah, he basically got off with just a slap on the wrist. That was Lolly and I can't remember. Yeah, Lolly and Julie. 1996, Skyline Resort in Shenandoah National Park. They'd been
Yeah.
hiking with their golden retriever and were found dead at their campsite. And let's see, take a quick look. I've covered so many of these cases.
Oh, I'm
There's
sure.
certain ones that I
Yeah.
can remember, and other stuff I have to cheat and look it up a little bit. But they did catch the guy that did it, and he admitted to doing it. But there was some reason that he got off, and it was just something. Daryl Rice was the perpetrator. He was indicted, but they couldn't gather enough of a case to really take him to trial, so it was dismissed. Nice, huh?
Yeah. But technically it's still unsolved, although it's probably pretty
Yeah,
obvious that he
but
did
it
it.
was somewhat obvious that he did it, but not enough that they felt comfortable taking it to trial. So, and then I covered Israel Keys. I don't know if you know much about him, serial killer, but he would cross country. He lived like in, I think he lived in Washington State or Oregon, and he would travel all the way to the East Coast. And he was one of these guys that would bury kill kits out in the woods, like these plastic buckets, sealable buckets with handcuffs and rope and knives and firearms and stuff in it, and just pure crimes of opportunity, whoever happened along the trail. And it's strange. I mean, he was literally two people, I think, had this just evil uh, part in him, but yet he was a loving husband and father and just liked to go out in the woods and kill people in his spare time.
Was this
But,
along like the Appalachian Trail?
I think he was in parts of the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just going off the top of my head here.
Right.
Serial killer, bank robber, burglar, extortionist, arsonist,
Lovely.
kidnapper, and sex offender. Suspected of murdering between 11 and 20 people, and all across the United States from July 2001 to February 2012. Um, I think he lived in Alaska or something, but they did confirm that he traveled like into New York and Vermont and places like that. And there's some people missing in Oregon and Washington State that they think he may have been responsible for. But he took himself out in his jail cell. But he claimed that he had a lot more victims than the ones they could pin on him.
Jeez.
How many of these missing persons cases do you think are something like that? Sick people just
It wouldn't
running around.
surprise me. Again, crimes of opportunity. You come across a hiker, and a lot of times these trails run parallel with the road and things like. I've never through hiked the Appalachian Trail, but I've section hiked a lot of it. And there's a place in Damascus, Virginia, where you can come off the trail. And there's a little convenience store there. They have trail days, and I think it's in the fall of the year. But yeah, somebody could, if you were just on that area going through there, Damascus, and somebody comes off the trail, you could, snatch them and nobody would ever know. And likewise, if a serial killer wanted to hike on the trail and take people out, or, you could get off in some little town, murder somebody, get right back on the trail. And, even if they're doing roadblocks and dragnet and things, I don't think they're going to check people on the trail.
Yeah.
So that might be a way to travel literally from Georgia to Maine and get off in some of these little towns, do whatever you want to do, and then hop back on the AT.
Mm.
And we think of, serial killers as not being as common as they used to be, but this suggests that it still might be happening through this type
Yeah,
of activity.
it wouldn't surprise me. I think they've gotten better at hiding it, maybe. And then you have stuff like the smiley face killers. There's people that think that that's like a band of people, maybe like long distance truckers. That uh, there's several people committing these crimes, all with kind of the same MO.
Mhm.
Well, you have a couple of different places. Like there's like the Texas killing fields, and there's like the was it like the road or the Trail of Tears, and British Columbia, that people where there's just like this
Yeah,
inordinate
that's
amounts of
and again
women that go
that's
missing and
yeah
people get found murdered.
the Highway of Tears there
Yeah,
in Canada, indigenous women, and that just it doesn't get the press that a lot of. I mean, there's probably thousands of women missing, and it's usually young girls that are hitchhiking from one place to the next. There's big signs up there, do not hitchhike, do not accept rides, but they do, and they go missing. So I mean, I think somebody that wanted to ply that nefarious trade, that's a good hunting ground.
yeah. Have you ever looked into the or I mean, it's a big kind of a bigger case, but like the Yuba City Five. Have you ever looked into that, Steve?
Yeah, and in fact, a couple of nights ago, I interviewed Drew Beeson from a
Yeah,
radio show
yeah,
who wrote a
yeah,
book about it.
yeah.
He also wrote about D.B. Cooper, Zodiac Killer. Drew's fascinating, but yeah, that's another weird one. That's just uh, totally inconclusive. They were going to watch a basketball game, and then where they did eventually find their vehicle and stuff, there was no reason for them to have gone that way, and somebody else had been up there around the time they went missing. He was trying to push his car out of the snow and had a heart attack. And he talked about seeing people with flashlights. About it was a group of men and a woman with a baby or something. But yeah, those guys they basically starved and or froze in a Forest Service cabin that had propane and had food. Um, so they had food and shelter, but I don't know if they didn't. Now they had some issues. They were developmentally delayed, I think, four of them anyway. And the one guy that was in the cabin there, they said that it looked like he'd lived for about 3 months or so, based on beard growth, but he was just totally emaciated and wrapped up in blankets. And I don't know, Drew, that's to him, it's inconclusive. There's one of the theories is that they were running from something, that something scared them. They've heard like Sasquatch and things like that, but that's a strange, strange case. And then the one guy, I can't remember which one it is. So there's five of them, but the one guy, they never found anything with him, but they found
Right.
the remains of the
That was
other.
the schizophrenic guy
Yeah.
who they said that he had been taking his medicine and that was under control. But there is some suspicion about that if if they were out
Yeah.
there that long
Like
and
if
if
he
he was
did it
even
and then took
yeah,
off or something, or the, and then they were last seen at some convenience store. So, maybe somebody saw them and thought, okay, these guys are, uh, I think they're autistic or whatever is what you would call it now. But, they would be easy to talk into something, possibly, and somebody lured them away. But then there's other weird parts of that. The one guy that they found in the cabin, his effects were there, including his wallet, which still had cash in it, a gold ring that he wore, and there was a gold watch on the table beside him that was never identified or claimed. It wasn't his, but they don't know whose it was. So it doesn't really sound like robbery was the motive. I don't know. They call that one the American Dyatlov pass case.
yeah. The whole Park Service trailer thing, like the Park Service knew that was there, but the police did not.
Yeah, and
And I think they
that was
disappeared in February and they were found in June.
yeah, and that was one of the things that they think there may have been a snowcat plowing the roads up there, and they followed that because they were lost, followed the
Yeah,
trail that the snowcat left. But
right.
that was one of the things Drew talked about was that they could never find the snowcat or who drove the snowcat or where it was from or who sent it or where it went to. So there's so many dead ends and red herrings and stuff in
Yeah.
that case. And
Well, there was no communication between the Park Service and the police. And if there had been, they would have known that um trailer was up there. They would have looked,
yeah,
but they never knew. So, by the time they get up there, the one guy's dead in the trailer, and I think two or three of them are dead in the surrounding woods, and then
yeah,
one's just missing.
yeah. So weird, weird case.
It's a strange one, that's for sure. One of the videos was more like a ghost story. And there was one with this woman that went missing, and then this family is out there, and the little boy sees this woman. I thought that was a fascinating
Yeah,
story.
that was the lady with the blue hair.
Yeah.
She had gone missing, and people had seen her in the park, and I think it maybe even asked her if she was in trouble or needed help or anything, and she declined anything. Now there's even conjecture that that might have just been her spirit that people interacted with. But yeah, family uh, had gone driving. They had some kind of four-wheel drive vehicle that they were up there riding around in, and the little boy told his mom, said, "Mommy, there's a lady over in that field, and she needs our help," or something like that. And he described her right down to the blue hair and stuff. But he said she was face down with her legs up in the air. And people have asked me, how can that even be possible? Well, either like she fell down an embankment or something, or she was hogtied, or she could have been in a hole or an abandoned well or mine shaft or something head first with her legs up. But the little boy was just adamant that he saw her and that she was asking for help. And just based on what he was talking about, the mom looked when she got home, and there, sure enough, there was somebody missing in that area, right down to the blue colored hair. So that one's very strange.
Yeah, and they even they showed a picture to the little boy of this
And he said
lady, and
that's her. He said that's the
yeah,
lady in the field. But subsequent searches up the police or the Park Service, who it was, went back up there with them to the area and couldn't find anything. But again, if she's face down with her legs up, maybe she's buried in a hole or something. I don't know.
and he also in that same video you talked about the one with the where this apparition with naked woman was seen on the side of the road, and
Yeah.
it caused the police to come, and that, like that's one I think was even like an unsolved mystery. So I think
Yeah,
that's one of the more
that's the first
fascinating
time I ever
stories.
heard that one was on Unsolved Mysteries. There
Yeah.
was a guy or I'm sorry, a woman and her son. She was on her way to a new town to either start a new job or look for work, and then she never showed up. And there's another couple driving through there late at night, and they see a naked woman on the side of the road, and they think, oh, this can't be good. They didn't stop or anything. They thought maybe it was somebody trying to carjack them or something like that. You stop for the naked lady, and then five guys come out of the woods and grab you. But they continued on, and then they called and turned it in, and the police went back and looked, and they found, sure enough, there was a car in that area down off the side of the road. You couldn't see it from the road, but when the officer was looking down the embankment, he could see it. Went down there, and there was a woman was dead in the car, and the coroner believed that she died on impact. So there was no way it was her up there on the edge of the road. Little boy was still alive. I think he was two or something, like two or three,
Yeah.
but just
Yeah.
barely. They said if they hadn't found him, he would have been dead within a few hours. And that was kind of what they talked about on Unsolved Mysteries, that it was that woman's spirit, and she was trying to get attention to that area so that somebody could save the son. And I think the kid was still buckled in, that they
He
thought he had
was.
just stayed there with his mom and hadn't been outside the car or anything, was smashed into a tree. So that's another one of those creepy ones. And somebody in that lady's family had a dream about a certain number or something, and that number was the mile marker closest to where they found her car.
Hmm.
So a lot of supernatural stuff with that one. But yeah, that was and you can find that on YouTube. Unsolved Mysteries did a very, very good job on that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and being absolutely fascinated by that case. Another one is the case where the lady was killed by one of her coworkers. She was a nurse. Teresita Bassett case. You ever heard of that one? She was killed by one of her coworkers, this guy. And she was a Filipino, and there was another Filipino nurse that worked in the same hospital. This is in Chicago, I think in 1978. And this nurse started having visions of this lady that was killed, and then later on starts speaking basically in her voice and tells, and this spirit, I guess, speaking through her, said exactly what happened. And the police kind of treated it real delicately, and they eventually confronted the guy, and he eventually did confess to killing her.
Yeah,
It's called like the ghosts that saw their own murder.
yeah,
And there's also
and
the Greenbrier ghost in West Virginia, which is a similar story.
yeah, yeah. That Greenbrier case, that was the first one where testimony of a ghost was allowed in court.
Yep.
A friend of mine from Rogersville, Catheta Cat Gray, she's got a YouTube channel called Ghost Lore, and she talked about that one recently.
You've got another video about the disembodied cries of missing people. What is
Yeah,
that one about?
well, that's just sometimes the searchers, the search and rescue will hear people calling for help, yet they can't find them, or when they do find them, they're deceased and have been so for some time, so there's no way they could have been calling for help. And there's other cases where people that were missing and were later found and made it out, where they could see and hear the search and rescue, but it was like they couldn't be seen. They're jumping, they're waving their arms like, "Hey, I'm here, I can see you, I'm right here," and they
Yeah.
just acted like they didn't see them. So it's almost like they went through a time slip or a portal or alternate dimension or something where I heard described as like, like two pieces of silk with different prints on them. And if they touch, you can see both parts. Then they part and they're separate again. It's like that, that it kind of, there's a bleed through there or something. And then there's other cases where people have heard voices, either in the woods or coming from a cave or something like that, calling to them that, and obviously whatever it is, it knows their name. And in some cases, it sounds like a relative or a friend, somebody that's either passed away or somebody that's thousands of miles away at a time, like, "Hey, come in, it's cave, John, I'm right here." And they're like, "No, that sounds like my brother, and he's, on the other side of the country. I'm not going in that cave." So again, that's almost like that trickster thing that we talked about, that
Hmm.
it obviously knows the person enough to mimic somebody that they know and knows their name, knows a little bit about them. So that's scary as hell to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But that'd be a big nope for me if I'm out in the woods and hear somebody calling my name or something calling to me from a cave. No, no, no.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why people are so interested in these missing people's mysteries because it could people are interested in true crime. It's got all those aspects of murder and crime, and then also it has this whole weird dimension of people being spirited away, that recalls all
Yeah.
this
And
fairy
all those
lore and
unsolved
Bigfoot.
cases. Yeah. And that's missing persons and mysteries. The mysteries, that's painting with a broad brush there because there's a lot of mystery or mysterious things involved in a lot of these disappearances.
Well, Steve, I mean, I think we should ask like a wider question of what you think is going on here. I mean, are we dealing with, I guess we're dealing with several different things.
Yeah, and I've
But
had
if,
people ask me that. Is it Bigfoot? Is it UFOs? Is it portals? Is it our government or some government? Is it the Glimmer Man or the Predator creature, or is it the Fae folk? And the short answer is yes. It's all those things, and maybe none of them, because there's each case is unique and different, but there are certain cases where those things kind of fit the bill. And I think the Fae theory that needs closer looking into, because the Bigfoot people, they're very adamant about Bigfoot and what it can and can't do in this. Same with the UFO people. But if you mention fairies or the Fae folk, people will laugh at you that believe in Bigfoot and UFOs. But if you look at that in the grand scheme of things and look at some of these, particularly the Celtic countries where the Fae were and probably still are almost a religion, they have stories dating back, 1800s, 1700s, and probably beyond that that fit in with all that. There was a
Mhm.
one book I was reading of fairy reports, and this was in 1700s, I think, or the early 1800s in Ireland. Uh, Witnesses talked about encountering a horseless carriage that came down out of the sky with little men in it. Well, that modern day, that's a UFO encounter, extraterrestrials. Or they talked about hairy creatures that lived in the woods. There's your Bigfoot or your Sasquatch. But in the framework of the Fae, it's all that's the umbrella that covers all of it. You've got the little people, you've got things that come from the sky, you've got things that live in caves and things that come out of the ground. They steal children, or they take them and replace them with a changeling. There's all type of hierarchy there. There's pixies and goblins and elves and all this stuff. I think it bears looking into. And again, I mean, nobody's going to take you seriously about it, but even Bigfoot and UFO people. But I think there's something there. I think it's all tied together.
yeah, I would agree with that, Steve, for
Mm.
sure.
It's real fascinating how much all these have in common and all the different phenomena that they could be related to.
Yeah. And as Charles Fort once wrote, one measures a circle beginning anywhere. And that's kind of the way it is when you start looking into these things. You come right back around to the same place, but you don't have any answers. And I stopped looking for answers a long time ago. I'm looking for the next set of questions. That there are no answers to a lot of this stuff, and especially with the paranormal and things like that. If we had all the answers, then the journey wouldn't be half as much fun and enjoyable as it is. But
I agree with
no,
that.
I
It's
think,
all about the mystery. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. I'm more of a legend tripper anyway. I'm not a by any means an expert on anything, and I don't
Right.
like being called that. Or if somebody's introduced to me as a paranormal expert or something, that kind of like, okay. But there's so much stuff out there. Soraya Ascath one time described the paranormal as like you're trying to put together a big jigsaw puzzle, a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, without the benefit of the box lid, so you don't know what the picture's even supposed to look like. And then the farther you get into it, you discover that some joker has taken maybe a dozen puzzles and mixed them together. So you're going to find pieces that don't fit anywhere. And I think that was a good analogy of the paranormal.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure speaking to
Oh,
you
a
again.
pleasure.
I always love talking to you.
Yeah, we go to cover some ground here, and I'm all over the road, but that's where I'm most comfortable. We jumped around a lot, but
I hear
I didn't
you.
have any notes or anything. And I apologize for that. I wasn't
Oh
sure even
no,
what we were
no,
going to
it's
talk
fine.
about, but
You
It's
can't,
fine.
I mean, you cover so much stuff, you're
yeah.
already an encyclopedia. We can't expect, you know.
Well, thank you.
What so what's next for you, Steve? I mean, is there another book coming out soon?
Yeah, I've
You could
got
allude a little bit to that.
yeah. My wife are working and I are working on some books about New England, and there's going to be some other surprises in there. And right now, Missing Persons and Mysteries, that's the main channel. And the missing person stuff I have on Among the Missing, I'm going to migrate that over and then rebrand that channel into something else. More to come on that, but you're going to like it. And
Cool.
yeah, more books on the way. And I've got some other series out there. I've got the 13 Past Midnight series and the legends and mysteries, of the Continental Divide and Appalachian
Mhm.
Trail and some of those. I just published the 20th book last year, and I've got, I hope, at least another 20 in me.
Wow,
Dang.
20
All right.
books. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Um, I'm no Nick Pope, or I'm sorry, Nick
Nick
Redfern, but
Redfern, yeah.
yeah, I joked one time. I think I made him mad at me. I was doing a live stream New Year's Day, and I said, "What is January 1st, and there's no new Nick Redfern book yet? What's going on?" But I do admire the guy. He is
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
a solid
That's
writer and researcher, and he's got some good stuff. So no shade there, Nick.
Yeah, we
that's
haven't
another
had
guy
Nick
we
on
haven't
for a
talked to in
while.
a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't talked to him in a while either. We should get him back on.
And
So,
have you had Robert Guffey on recently?
oh, many
Yeah.
times. Many times.
I
Yeah,
remember he was either on right before me or right after one of the other times I'd been on. That
yeah.
Camelio stuff just fascinates the hell out of me. I mean, that could account for things. If they've got these cloaking abilities, then they could be going and taking people and maybe cloak them too and smuggle them out of the woods.
Yeah, he was just
It's
on not too
weird.
long ago, just a few episodes ago with our good friend Dr. Future. So,
Yeah,
want to check that out,
yeah,
Steve.
I love that whole the Camelio stuff.
Yeah, he's a great writer, man. Robert Guffey, I mean, he's a great fiction writer too. He's got a lot of great
Yeah,
fiction books as well, and he writes also for several magazines too. So he keeps fairly busy with what
yeah.
he does.
That's one of those things where
Also,
it's just a burning passion. That's like me. I can't not create. I'm always doing
yeah,
something.
I hear you. Also, Steve, you got a podcast out right now, which I've had the pleasure of being on. So, tell people all about that.
Yeah, it's a radio show. It's on Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. It airs live Sunday night from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. And then after 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, it goes out to all the podcasters. It's on iHeartRadio and Spotify and places like that. And then I have Among the Missing, I have a podcast version of that. And I've got another show I'm kind of putting together over there. It's in its infancy, but it's kind of a more modern, irreverent take on Paul Harvey called Ain't That Some Shit?
All right.
So, he'd always say, now the rest
The
of the
rest of
story.
the
So
story.
I tell some story, with a twist there at the end and say, well, ain't that some shit? So,
Cool. A lot of potential there. That's cool.
yeah.
Well, excellent, Steve. Thanks so much for coming on and tell everybody where
Oh,
they
my
can find
pleasure.
you, your website, and all that as well.
The easiest way to find me, YouTube, Missing Persons and Mysteries. And I have links to everything else on there. And I'm on Facebook and get me by Gmail. Steve Stockton 81. That's the numbers 81 at gmail.com. Love hearing from people.
All right, Steve, thank you for coming on and stay on the line with us and we can chat just a little bit. But guys, we got a special announcement and we will be right back on the show. We have a special announcement that we want to get out of the way and tell you guys about and just talk about some things that have been going on and some of the things, I guess, a little bit that's on our mind lately. But I guess we will start with the announcement. So we are going to be doing Strange Realities Conference coming up in November. And the dates are going to be November 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd. And it's going to be the same format as last year. So there's going to be 2 days at SIR, and there's going to be a third day, which is the 3rd. So that's a good way to remember it. That is going to be online only. And of course, the whole thing is streaming online, just like we did last year. So that is the big announcement, the Strange Realities Conference. Tickets will go on sale soon. We're going to figure out the pricing, all that, although it's probably going to be the same as last year. But we just wanted to let everybody know that we are going to be doing it again this year. There was some debate.
Yeah, after
That
much debate, I would say.
yeah, much debate actually. There was debate about whether or not we were going to do it this year because it is somewhat of a financial hardship, but
It's a non-profit endeavor, to
it's
say
a
the least.
non-profit endeavor. Thank you, Sir Field. I think that's a better way to say it. But we are going to go ahead with it this year. And we have a lot of the same people returning, and we have some new people also that are going to be a part of it. I'm still working on the guests list for this year, so just stay tuned for that as we make announcements. But of course, you guys are good from now on are going to hear us talk about it. We should also mention too, April 24th. Don't forget. So this show should be out before then. That we're going to have Greg Bishop giving a lecture or a presentation on alien language, and that is
Hmm.
going to be April 24th. And I think we said that we're going to do that about like 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I think that that's something that will work for everybody. So stay tuned for that. That is for Patreons. So we really want to start getting the ball rolling with that again every month, at least until the conference.
Yeah.
And that is just another way, um, and I think a better way in some ways than the conference for presentations and a little bit more like interaction. So
Hmm.
if you're a Patreon, you like what we do, um, you can check that out. And of course, that is recorded and you can watch it later. But the best part of that is really like the audience interaction.
Absolutely.
So um, there is that. So those two announcements, those two things are coming up in November. The big thing, like we have done for the last few years, and the monthly presentation at the end of April, the end of this month. So, any thoughts about that, Sergio, or anything you want to add?
I just look forward to seeing everyone again. There was a lot of debate about whether we were going to do this, um,
Yeah,
but we were convinced by some really good friends and participants in the conference. So you can really thank them more than anybody. And I would just stress again that this is something that is not to be taken for granted.
because this
Barely,
almost did not happen this year.
yeah, is barely even happening. And its past format, it really became unsustainable, um, is what it boils down to. So we're just looking for a way forward and appreciate all the encouragement, appreciate how much it's meant to everybody who has come. And if you ever
Abs-
wanted to, this would definitely be the one.
Yes. So if you have wavered in the past on coming to Strange Realities, of actually getting down here to Nashville and being a part of it, we would highly suggest that you try to come this year. And I think I'll just leave it at that because doing this we kind of done this year to year as we've seen the results of the last conference. And we really felt that this year, that like last year in 2023, we were kind of we were like turning a corner with it. And 2023 almost was the last one,
Mhm.
just because of financial reasons. So I think if you like to support us or support the broader community, even
Yeah.
of interesting people that have interesting things to say, please try to come to the conference. If not, there is the online option as well.
There's really not a lot of other opportunities that the general public gets to get together with these people. And
Yeah,
if you haven't heard me talk about it over and over again before, there really is no hierarchy between the speakers and the audience at this show. So really, when you come, everyone's in the
yes,
same family. It's like a fucking conspirinormal gathering of the juggalos.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's people are accessible and your favorite authors and podcasters and researchers get to, you get to trade notes with them and talk about personal experiences and hear stuff you're not going to hear anywhere else and all kinds of secrets and intrigue.
Yeah, there's a lot of conferences out there, guys, and then we realize that there's so much to choose from, and I see them all the time. These cryptid cons, these ghost conferences, all these different type of conferences. They kind of pigeonhole, what they are,
Right.
right? And Strange Realities is really not like that. We are a grab bag of topics overarching kind of the paranormal.
Yeah, probably
But
to
I
the
th
detriment of, its
Yeah,
ability to be popular.
right. But I think that, you're going to get a much more, I will say this, I think you're going to get a much more intellectual base, a
Yeah.
much more intellectual presentations, lectures, what have you.
Research based,
And
people who
research
write
it's
books.
very research based. Exactly. So I mean I think that this is a little different than just kind of these kind of um conferences that are much more geared to like TV and all these type of things. You know, you guys know who you are. We have a very, I think, intellectual and very gifted audience and very discerning audience. And you guys know what you like and what you're going to get from us, from the show and from the conference. So I would just put it like that. And these are kind of like, ideas that I want to put out to people that, this thing is a little different than what you're going to get that's just more like, I guess, mainstream paranormal, I
Yeah.
suppose you could call it.
And at those things, I mean, you're kind of um, limited to interaction with the speakers. I mean, maybe you can go up and do a little meet and greet, get a book signed, but
Yeah,
I mean, you really will be able to hang out informally with all these people.
right. Because it's a big room, but it's a smaller space. And, there's nobody in the green room. There's nothing, no kind of prima donna stuff like that. Everybody is very, very friendly and very, very accessible. And people that have been to the conference will tell you and testify to that. I wanted to just address too that you guys may have noticed that we've kind of been on this like 2 week schedule.
Mhm.
And I've honestly really liked doing that for the last couple of months. It's been very non-stressful. In the past, where I felt like I had to compete with all these other podcasts, I really feel that there's been an upsurge in really the quality of our shows and our interviews when we've gone to 2 week increments
Mhm.
with the show. Yeah, it also allows us to just rest and also allows me to and him to read some of these books and get more familiar with it with the guests, and so that we can give you guys better interviews. This is probably how we're going to be doing things sort of going forward. As we get a little closer to the conference, we're going to have a much more, probably a little bit more of a rate. So I know that you probably were used to us doing these shows every single week, but I feel no need to do that. I don't feel like this is like a competition.
Yeah.
We will probably eventually get into the summer. We probably will want to do, maybe three episodes a month, take a week off, that type of thing. But you may notice that it's been a little more sporadic than it has been in the past. We've done 400 something, nearly 500 episodes. And so after a while, I don't want to feel this pressure to create, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of both personally in different ways going the opposite of a lot of the larger cultural trends, to just turn everything into a commodity, to broadcast everything that you do, everything in your personal life, and to feel pressure to create content for, these giant data harvesting operations that rule our lives, the secret algorithms, and are destroying the fabric of society. Like, we like doing this a lot, but like, we're not ever going to be those type of aspiring influencers, which is why people like us.
Yeah. There's a lot of shows out there, guys, especially in like the field that we do, the paranormal, and I guess the conspiracy theory field as well. But there's a lot out there to, I guess you could say, choose from, I suppose. So we thank you guys for choosing us that are listening.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks to all the patrons for hanging in there. We definitely have not delivered on like weekly Patreon content. I don't know what we're gonna have to do in the future. We will get these monthly presentations going, and hopefully that can satiate our biggest supporters. We really appreciate you. But there's a ton of, for new people, there's a ton of old content on there that's still brand new to you, and tons of videos and presentations. Not to mention, we haven't even started making years past 2019 Strange Realities presentations available, which is going to be an eventual reality.
Yeah, I'm going to be working on that this year.
So there's a lot. We've done a lot, and it feels good to do it every other week,
Yeah. Well, stay tuned. I mean, there's more to come. I mean, we've got a show coming up in a couple of weeks that I think is going to be good. It's actually somebody that lives here in Nashville that's going to be part of the conference. And thank you also for reminding me about the monthly thing. So stay tuned for those two that we have. And also, I'm also going to be doing a Strange Realities Conference YouTube channel that's going to have most of these presentations, probably everything up till 2022. Probably in the next few months, I'm going to be putting all that stuff up online. And that's going to serve as part of a promotional as well.
Cool. I mean, if you want to check that stuff out, if you want to sign up to just get in automatically to Greg Bishop's upcoming presentation, you can just head on over to patreon.com/Conspirinormal. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you all seriously consider coming to Strange Realities in person in Nashville.
All right, guys. November 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd. Come check it out. We will have info. We'll be working on that pretty soon. But in the meantime, expectation, the first weekend of November, right before the election. I don't know how all that's going to go.
Have fun while you can.
Yeah, have fun while you can, guys. It might be the last blast before the Civil War. You never know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you later. And I want to thank Steve Stockton for coming on Conspirinormal.